Hey, Gideon. It's so nice to see so many familiar names.
So we've got Debbie Ingalls. Is that Debbie? Or is it Craig? I'm not sure. Anyway.
Maybe it's Craig in disguise.
Morning, Lindsay. Okay, hi, Sarah.
Right, guys, we've got a few people still coming in, obviously, but Mark, why don't we kick off this morning? Alrighty, guys. Well, good morning, everybody, or good evening, good afternoon, wherever you guys may be. It's an absolute amazing to have you all again. To be honest, I really missed you guys. We didn't do this last week, bank holiday and all that kind of stuff. So we really had I think me and Mark sort of were sitting there kind of twiddling our thumbs last Friday, wondering what to do with ourselves. So it's great to be back. And look, honestly, this week we have an awesome guest. We've got Conny Braams, who is the current Chief Digital and Marketing Officer of Unilever. I really couldn't think of a cooler job, but perhaps a more important job at this moment in time with the way both the world is moving, but of course, Unilever transforming in that sense. So it's absolutely brilliant to have a little bit of Conny's time for her to share with us her journey this morning. Just to give you a little bit of background about Conny. Conny is what you would potentially call, I wouldn't say a Unilever lifer, but 31 years is a pretty long time. Maybe Conny could tell us if that's a lifer. But she actually is charged with the transformation of over 400 Unilever brands in the portfolio, focusing very much at this moment in time around digital transformation across the entire organization and across the entire globe. Conny is no stranger to global business. She's literally worked in most corners of the world, continents from Asia to Africa and Europe as well. So love to get a bit of context and perspective from you, Conny, about how you made that travel around there. Conny is an absolute driving force at Unilever. She is very much sort of akin to the purpose-driven agenda that they're currently driving, thinking about the role of things like e-commerce and even around agency structures and in-housing are some of the things that are front of Conny's mind. But beyond this, look, Conny's had a fantastic career journey to date and only getting stronger, clearly. So it's with absolute pleasure that we welcome Conny this morning to hear more about her journey and how she was able to get to the top echelons of Unilever. Welcome, Conny.
Hello. Hi, Richie. Hi, Mark. And hi, everyone. Great to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Pleasure. I'm going to hand over to Mark to kick us off with the first question.
Thanks, Richie, and welcome, Conny. It's fantastic to have you on the show. For me personally, two reasons. One is Unilever as a company I have a lot of admiration for. And Paul Polman was one of our very first guests on the show, and we've had Keith Weed on as well. And I would say Unilever people tend to be very interesting and intelligent, so I know we'll have a good session. The second thing is we actually have very similar jobs, but I think in our company we have about 5 brands, not 400. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to learn a thing or two as well. So that's on the QT. So anyway, just to get us started, let's just hear about how 2021 has been for you in these very curious times.
Oh, thanks for asking, Mark. And as I said, excited to be here. How has 2021 been? It's been long, hasn't it? Being in COVID. And I think when I started this new role as Chief Digital Marketing Officer, I was planning to move to London, and that's where I wanted to be, really. But unfortunately, when my plans were to move in March, COVID happened, and ever since then I've been in the Netherlands. So now I'm working from the Netherlands. It has its bright sides as well. Let's face it. My 2 daughters are studying in the Netherlands, so I get to see them a bit more often. My parents have been a bit anxious and nervous throughout this time, so I'm close to them. So in a sense, it's all good, but you of course start really missing, first of all, your team and being physically together. It is my first role in the executive team of Unilever. I had a chance for 2 months to see them physically. And of course, I had 30 years to get to know most of them. So they're not new to me, but my team is new. And I also really miss the travel and being around teams where everything is happening in the markets. So it's been good, I would say. And I shouldn't complain if I compare it to other parts of the world. The Netherlands is a safe place to be, and I have my loved ones around me. So it's okay, everything. But I'm really looking forward to, hopefully, let's pray, after summer, where at least this part of the world will be looking a little bit better, and then the rest of the world hopefully will catch up soon.
Yeah, Connie, I think all of us are sort of sitting with that hope, fingers crossed, at the moment. But Connie, I want to pick up on something. So you clearly said, into the executive team for 1 or 2 years at the moment, and prior to that, what has clearly been a phenomenal career of 31 years at Unilever. So tell us a little bit about that, and maybe some of the highlights that you went through, and perhaps some of the key lessons that you take away as to how you made it to that executive team at the moment in time.
Well, how long have we got? Yeah, 5 hours. Here we go. Okay, let me focus on a couple of highs and lows. So, indeed, I studied healthcare administration actually. So, was I prepared for this role? Certainly not. But then I decided, you know what, maybe the for-profit world has something interesting as well. So I did an MBA and then started at Unilever in the Netherlands. That's known to be a marketing powerhouse. So I thought, oh, marketing should be something that I like. And then one day when I'm wise and gray, I'll probably go back to the healthcare sector, but not now. Well, who knows what life has for me coming after this. But for now, it's been 30 years with the same company. And I especially know in Asia, people looked at me as if I was an alien. Did never, ever somebody want you? They were asking. And I said, oh, so I sort of like this company. So that's why I stayed around. And I think it's just by chance, because to be very honest, yes, I knew it was a very professional company. I knew a couple of people, but not that many. But it turned out that actually over time, my values are very much aligned to the values of Unilever, and that makes that you really want to put the extra effort into it. So that has helped a lot. And because, as you said, we have 400 plus brands, so there's every time a new adventure. I've traveled around the world, which is a plus for me. So I had the privilege of working in Spain and then in Singapore, being responsible for Asia, Africa, and the Middle East, countries that I hadn't even visited as a tourist. All of a sudden I was managing. So it's been a huge adventure and lots of learning opportunities, and lots of things have gone wrong at the same time. But it brought me to where I'm currently at. And to be honest, I never had this really as an ambition or set myself out to do this, because I'm also very much a person who wants to enjoy life. And parts of enjoying is also learning new things, adventures. But here I am. So after all these travels, it's actually really good, because I think the enrichment that living abroad brings, of getting to know who you yourself are and switching a couple of your paradigms, I think is very good to now be able to do a global role like I currently have. And I wouldn't even call it out to be I'm I'm 1 year plus in the job. So let's see what impact I can make. But these kind of jobs just take a little bit longer to really have fundamental impact. But there's a lot happening now, and it really helps that I've seen the world from different angles.
So, Conny, I am intrigued. 30 years, it's a long time.
Yes.
I've worked for 2 organizations for 9 years, including my current role. And I look at that and I'm impressed. So I'm just intrigued to know what kept you there, and maybe if you had some wobbles. But you did talk about values as well. So you said the alignment of values, maybe that was important. And if so, what were those values that kept you in?
Well, basically Unilever is a big company, yeah. So every corner you go to, there's of course different challenges coming at you. And I've done marketing roles, I've done sales roles, general management roles. I've been in communication for a bit of time. So I think the changes make that every time there's something new to develop. Whilst on the other hand, the beauty of staying in one company is that the values that are across the whole world. So what I typically like is, I remember the beginning time in Unilever, and I was sent to the south of the Netherlands, which wasn't particularly the best place to start in Unilever. So finally you got through, you became a trainee after all these selection rounds, and then, we've got a really nice marketing spot for you in the south of the Netherlands. It wasn't at Vandenberg and Jurgens, which was the prestigious place to be, but I started at the Meet Group. It says a lot. And I thought, now here we go, being nervous as I could be in a place where I didn't know if I was really going to like it. But actually what you find is immediately people that you can level with, that you think are very professional. But I was wondering, who are all these people at the headquarters? And they're doing something about the Marine Stewardship Council or sustainable agriculture. And I got to know that actually already at that moment in time, actually, wanting to do good for the world was an important value within Unilever. And I think you've had Paul Polman, so I'm sure you will have talked a lot about Unilever Sustainable Living Plan. But I think with the beauty that Paul brought is he made it very external. But whilst you were in it, you were already noticing that actually we're quite a caring company. Yes, we want to win as well. So absolutely, performance culture is important. But it is also a caring company towards people, but also to planet and society. So, and I think that kept me going. Also, you are thrown in. So yeah, I came from Spain, was the marketing director in Spain. There was already a huge challenge. I can talk a lot about that, moving from the Netherlands to Spain and just thinking, oh, I'll just move from one MT management team to another management team. But culture does a lot, or the place where a company is located. And then all of a sudden I became general manager of Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. Well, that requires a lot of swimming. So, getting to know different parts of Unilever, because it was also food service, which was a part I've never worked and lived in. So on the whole, why am I still 30 years in with Unilever? I think the threat of professionalism, the right values, wanting to do good, but also the possibilities to learn, to develop, to give you a chance to develop and work with really nice people, I must say. So I think that kept me going.
Fantastic. That's really great to hear, Conny. And we've had a comment in from Katja saying that the south of the Netherlands is a pretty desirable place to work now. things
Katja, you're right. But at that moment in time, it was like these books were coming out when the people who made it, who were successful, never started in the south, etc. But you know what? It turned out to be 4 fabulous years. So in that sense, and it's good. It creates a sort of a group atmosphere if all of us coming from the northern and the western part of the Netherlands working in the south was actually creating friends for life, I must say.
I'm sure that'd be the case. I want to ask you a question from Matt. Matt's an awesome performance manager marketing manager at TSP. And he asks, what are the most important skills you feel that have led to your success?
Skills. Well, I would say maybe the most important skill, if you call it a skill, is then I'm quite able to absorb and then change. I think you call it plasticity of learning or something like that in English. So it is something in me that, as I just said, I was marketing director in Spain, became general manager for Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. Now, of course, it makes me uncertain, and I think, am I really the one who can do this? And I need to learn so much, and there must be people who are better at it. And I must say, the first year in a job is never the year that I like the best, because I doubt myself a lot, and I think, am I really the one who could change matters for the best? But then again, after a bit of time, I think the fact that I have an ability to learn, to understand, to listen well, and to then make choices on the things that are really going to have an impact for the job that I'm doing or the geography that I'm responsible for. So I think that's probably what normally it's a deliberate choice to work for me as well. So hopefully like everybody on the call. So, and then I also think, I spend so many hours working, I better enjoy it, isn't it? So I also like to have a bit of fun along the day, to energize other people, to take a look at what is good about matters, what are happening, even though I need to tackle a lot of challenges as well. So, and from a real skill perspective, probably it is obviously the marketing skills that I acquired throughout my career. So that make me successful, but I wouldn't say that the digital skills in my first job are now really helping me, because there was all writing papers, bringing them to a room where there were people typing it out. And then Tipex was my biggest friend in trying to, so in a sense, these things you learn along the way, but then it is a ability to learn new things, I would say.
That sounds great. And can I just do one follow-up question around skills just for a second? Because I know I've had a number of conversations with sort of younger marketers, and I know a couple of them will be watching right now. And one of the things that they're, I guess, constant dilemma of is, they have ambitions to kind of get similar job titles to both you and Mark. And one of the things that they always struggle with is do they kind of go down a very specific, specialized area of marketing? Or on the flip side, do they try and kind of go more generalist and kind of get an array of different skills, maybe perhaps both agency client side? So I would just love to get your thoughts and perhaps a bit of guidance from a younger person's perspective about what are the key things and skills that you think they would need to hold them in good stead for the future.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't be a good chief digital marketing officer if I wouldn't say, for now, get your act together in the digital space, because this is the future. So I would certainly, but I look at a career very much as a collection of experiences. So make sure you have, especially in the beginning of your career, quite a rich variation of experiences. Not so much to make you successful in the end, but maybe to make you choose what you really enjoy, and where you're happen to be good at. I think it's best if these two things come together, but it's very difficult coming from university to know exactly what is it that I'm really good at, I'm going to enjoy for a long period of time. So, and I firmly believe that throughout your career, you need to learn. And hopefully you like learning, because that, I think, will set you up for success. But especially in the beginning, try out lots of different things. And you can do that in one company as well. And I think that's why I personally like the traineeships, because at least you get 3 years, every half year, another part of something you do. We even do talent swaps with agencies, etc. So what I would think of is, in the end, if you have the luck to be choosing a career, there's always a couple of criteria that come up whenever you choose a nice job. But let's make sure that happiness is one of them. So, and you need to then define what makes me happy. And over time, I have sort of come to a list of things that I like. Now, there's never any job that fulfills all of the boxes, so give up on that. There's always 20% in your job that you think, oh, is it still part of it? Here we go again. So, but for 80%, it probably need to tick the boxes of, and then hopefully the learning part of it is part of it. But it could be a cultural immersion. It could be the digital side of marketing, or am I going to learn the creative side of marketing a lot more? So I would say there's also, don't be too harsh on yourself. There's 20,000 ways of having a really happy and fulfilling life. So try out a couple of things, and then you'll see. I've done jobs that with hindsight, probably didn't like too much for different circumstances, but I've learned what I didn't like. And that is also very helpful. Or you come across bosses or leaders that you need to work with, and you think, well, you know what, it's probably not my style. But what you learn from it is there's always good things in leaders. So pick out these things, but also things you never would want to incorporate in your own spectrum of behaviors. So I would say be a bit relaxed about it. There isn't one way to get there. I remember when I went to Spain, people were saying, why do you become the marketing director? You could become the general manager. And I was like, oh, hold on a minute. I just want to, this is the first time I'm going to do a proper job in another country that I don't know the culture of. I don't even speak the language well. Let me at least give me one thing that I'm a little bit more secure about, and that is that I'm a pretty okay marketeer. And then the other things come on top. And if life treats me that way, one day I'll be a GM, a general manager, maybe in Spain, somewhere else. But give a little bit of yourself a bit of a rest, that there's one element that you feel whenever you take a jump, that you feel a bit more certain about.
Conny, I love the thought of a career being a collection of experiences. That's very liberating. And sort of takes a bit of the pressure off the whole thing. We're getting some great questions in. Great question from Sadia, which we'll get to, and also from Selena about values. We'll get to those very shortly. But before we do, I wanted to ask a question about you as a people manager. So I've heard Alan Jope talk about people being the number one stakeholder when we think about planet, shareholders, investors, customers, that people is the number one, and it all flows from there. Now, you've mentioned a couple of times about enjoying it and being happy and listening. My sense is that you enjoy leading people, but I just want to know what's it like working for Conny Braams? And maybe the follow-up question is, would you like to work for yourself? I know it's an odd question, but it sort of teases out, what is it about you that makes you a great people manager?
Well, maybe there's people on the call who work for me now, so they're probably better placed. But by now I've had 30 years of multi-source feedback, so I sort of know what people like. Actually, I think how is it like to work for me? I think on the one hand side, I'm challenging, but I'm also cooperative, and I'm quite task oriented. So what does it mean? Maybe it's my Dutch origin, but I am quite what you see is what you get. So there isn't another real important agenda. Otherwise, I would say it. I'm quite transparent. Integrity is for me really important. So that's the one that I score high on. I'm transparent, but not if it relates to people and things that should not be shared. But transparent on where I think we need to be going. And I'm very willing to change my mind. And I've learned along the way, especially in Asia, where people tend to speak up a little bit less than in the Netherlands. I needed to get used to that. Getting back after my first town hall in the Netherlands again, everybody would say, well, some would say, oh, this was really crap, or this was really brilliant. I said, did I ever ask for feedback? What has happened? But in the Netherlands, you get feedback on the spot. Doesn't really matter, especially negative. But it's always from a positive spirit because they care. In Asia, you need to do your best to get that because there is other dimensions at play. But I try to always bring my best to portray agility. I think that's also really important. What is needed at this moment in time? But I very much, I know that it's a buzzword nowadays, but in Unilever, we started this purpose journey, I think 10 years ago. And my personal purpose is energize to explore and jointly create a better future for all. And energize, I think that in the role you got to energize your team to explore, go and try, see what you learn. I won't beat you up if it's a failure. I'm here to back you up if it's a failure. But we really need to do this together. But at the same time, try and see what you can do to make the world slightly better, if only for your own team. Because so I think I'm caring yet challenging, and I'm quite an optimist. Try to bring some energy in, and I try to really develop people. So I take a long time to do these. To prepare for these important moments in the year, your half year and your end of year, which isn't just about did I reach my KPIs and where am I on reaching my targets, but it's also about what I've seen, how people could improve or could develop further, what are the areas that I would reckon them to pay attention to additionally. So that's probably who I am.
Amazing, Conny. The one thing that I've kind of just sort of listening to you and sort of maybe reading between the lines a little bit, your ability to cut through cultural empathy or have a high degree of cultural empathy is something that's really kind of shining through to me. And I think that's really special. And, you talk, I'm half Indian, lived in that side of the world for a long time. And I really resonated with some of those kind of key cultural elements that you raised from that perspective versus some of the elements that you say, happens in the Netherlands. I'm sure it happened in the UK too. So it's just really great to hear a leader kind of, front of mind, being a culturally aware and understanding how different people even react at different parts of the world to you as a leader, which is great. So Conny, I just want to turn a little bit to a slightly technical question. I'm going to do a cardinal sin when hosting and try and kind of club in two questions at one time, but they're quite related. So the first thing is from Ruben Rafael, by the way. So he is a great individual working at Unilever and the Domestos team. So he basically asks, just as more questions came through. So I lost that, but there we go. So he asks, do you think there'll be a shift in prioritization from traditional TV advertising to more digital and social media advertising? And if so, when do you think that will happen? So hold the thought for 1 second. And Debbie Ingalls asks, what's the scope of digital transformation for marketing at Unilever? Is this in the comm space? And if so, do the principles of marketing still apply? So hopefully slightly clubbed together as sort of two questions.
Yeah, so we move a bit into the business space. Here we go. So my role is Chief Digital and Marketing. And that is often said as, oh, digital marketing. But actually, it is digital. And Ellen specifically asked me on behalf of Unilever to take a look at the end-to-end digitalization. And then I do marketing as a function. And answering your first question, when is the move happening? That all depends on the part of the world that you're living in and the digital ecosystem. It's happening everywhere. But if I take a look for Unilever specifically, if you take a look at media, in China, we have brands that are 100% digital. And in general, 80% of our expenditure is in the digital media space. If I take a look at India, it is only 20%. But in general, we sort of spend 40% of our media is now in the digital space. So it's happening everywhere. Now, digital in itself doesn't say so much because you can also have broadcasting in digital, basically, not doing narrowcasting or position marketing. What I've really seen happening latest is, of course, the real step up also for our companies in performance marketing. So the lower end of the funnel, due to the fact that e-commerce has exploded in times of COVID, and now new generations or older generations have also become accustomed to online shopping. So I truly believe that everything will become shoppable, and that sometimes you say the funnel has exploded, but I don't think the funnel has exploded. The linear consumer experience isn't there anymore. So any moment in time when you're browsing or just discovering, you could go and buy something, and then that needs to be made easy. So the other part of the question was more about the scope.
So scope of digital transformation in marketing, and does traditional principles of marketing still apply?
Yeah, so I think the traditional principles will always apply. So in the end, this is all about now how many P's you want to discover, but that's still very much true. The way that we build brands might be changing quite a bit. And what we see obviously is digitally native businesses getting into our fields. You see that brands are being built via digital platforms, which is quite different. So the competitor landscape is changing. The media that we have available are changing. The channels that we have available are changing, but it makes it fun, isn't it? And then if you really think about the scope of digital, I think there's so much more going to happen in the consumer and customer space in the So overall, in the end, we will not be talking, but I don't know if you've covered this. We won't be talking about digital so much in 5 years' time. Everything will become digital. Every line of the P&L will be influenced by digital. Every function will be transformed. And that's why, coming back to a question that you asked before, we are now talking about our Unilever Future Leader program, so our trainee program, that in every traineeship, you need to have half a year of digital experience. Doesn't matter which function you're in. Now, is this a challenge for some company? Yes, it is, because digital likes end-to-end. Digital likes also scale, and we do happen to work with different markets in different circumstances. But especially as end-to-end thinking in companies where you are more vertically organized, is a bit of a challenge, but it's not, well, that makes it fun as well. We really need to overcome it. And where you also see that marketing and sales are blurring quite a bit. If you think about e-commerce, if you think about the platforms, these are selling channels, but they're also media channels, performance marketing, who does it? So these are discussions where you really see that the future of marketing is being shaped by the ecosystem that you're part of. So at the same time, I always come back to brands. What do brands do? Brands actually have a dual nature of value, I believe. So on the one hand side, it is value. It's superior products at an affordable price, especially now that we enter recession. But it's more and more values, because people want to see a brand that stands for something, have a point of view, but also act upon that. So I really believe that this is evolving over time, but it is still the same principle as whenever we were listening to our professors in the past. So a lot of it is still the same.
Great perspective, Conny. And the point about everything will be digital and nobody will have digital in their name and there'll be no digital teams. I think we're starting to see that more and more. And in fact, we've gone that way with Direct Line. Now, I just wanted to do one small shout out. I see Lindsay Homer's on the call. And I just want to say congratulations, Lindsay, for your new job. Lindsay works at Cadbury's and has become, if I get this right, brand manager for Cadbury's cream egg and mini eggs. I mean, it's rivaling you, frankly, Conny, in terms of one of the better jobs that's out there. But congratulations, Lindsay. Now, the purpose of the School of Marketing is to help people find their way into marketing and thrive and make marketing a destination career. So I'm going to go to Sadia's question. So Sadia is 9 years into Unilever, having worked in finance in 4 countries, and now wants to make the switch to marketing. Now, Sadia, you've seen the light. Congratulations. And I wish you every success. But actually, you can get some first-hand advice. So the question is, any tips on how to move to marketing from another function? And I suppose more broadly as well, Conny, that allows you to talk to why you think marketing is a good place to work in any event.
Yeah. So indeed, congratulations in thinking about this as well. I love my finance business partners the same, but and I think it's really fascinating. But I think marketing is a special place. Marketing, you have the ability to really influence via creativity what's happening in the world around us, and I think we have an ability to take consumers on our journey. And the journey needs to be a worthwhile one. So that's the one that you really need to think about. And I honestly believe that if there is something worthwhile pursuing, it is actually how can brands play a role in making the planet and society a better one. And as a marketeer, you're capable of doing so. So now coming back to the question, how do you move from finance to marketing or from any function to marketing? What I think is important is something that I said already in the beginning. Whatever move you're making, make sure that there's something that gives you confidence, but is also the reason why people would want you in that role. So if you have been the finance business partner of Ben & Jerry's, making it up, I don't know, but then make sure that you find a marketing place in Ben & Jerry's. We don't go for a marketing place in Sunsilk or in Dove, because that might just be too much of a change. So I firmly believe that make sure that there is one element that is going to sort of stay the same, because you already know it. That's good for business because it gives us sort of a confidence, but it's also good for you because otherwise everything will be thrown in the air. And I also believe that it is less about the skill set that you bring. It is, yes, there's things to learn and be ready for it. Your first year will be chaos because there's so many new things coming at you, but enjoy it as well, because that's the reason why you wanted it. On the other hand, competences, your personality, your inner game is going to bring you where you want to be. So the outer game can be learned, but the inner game of purpose, service, agility, personal mastery, the characteristics you have, are, especially if you have an interest already, will be the defining ones. So wishing you all luck in doing this and let me know if I can help.
It's interesting, Conny, you're really an old mentor of mine, Tim Millermark, always sort of told me exactly the same around changing of the variables and making sure that there are some commonality when making those big career shifts. So I totally resonate with what you're saying there. And it's great advice that's held me in good stead as I've made those pivotal career changes too. Interestingly, we've had another question related from Jen Smith, who's asking similarly around currently working B2B and then trying to get into B2C. I'm assuming a lot of those sort of principles that you've laid out will hold true. So rather than kind of going back on them, she asks around how long do you think someone should sort of perhaps be in a silo around or be in one particular area like B2B before she's trying to move into B2C? Is there a sort of is there a timeline after which you may get pigeonholed, for example, or is it worthwhile moving sooner rather than later?
Well, let's shy away from the perfect recipe, isn't it? There is no perfect recipe for this. So I would say what I've experienced, the more senior you get in a role, the more important it is to stay a little bit longer, because what you see is that you're needing to change whole organizations. And so I think if you think about a career line, you start first with managing yourself, then you probably have 1 or 2 people working with you in the team, then your team gets bigger, and then you start managing an organization. And the higher you get up, the more you also manage the context around it. And I've specifically seen that when I was a GM for Europe and being based in the Netherlands, all of a sudden I had a lot of contacts with ministers and creating the environment for the business to flourish in. So what I would say, the only thing to bear in mind is, have I had a chance to make an impact? What is the legacy I'm leaving in this role? What have I really learned? Or should I stay a bit longer? And I have also moved from B2C to B2B because I've done 5.5 years food solutions in Unilever when I was in Singapore, working with chefs. And I loved it. I got a bit fed up with consumers and consumer behavior, etc. I thought, oh, this is really interesting. This is chefs, and for chefs, actually, the products that we serve them are even more important. So because a chef's whole being is about the recipes he creates and what he puts on the plate. And every day you're judged because you won't go back to a restaurant if you didn't like that specific meal. So it's even more important. And I always find, and especially with that, I had a chance to really take a look at so many different channels and to see how you serve a different audience. So don't declare something the holy grail, because that's the thing I also got asked a lot of time when I was in food solutions. Oh, Conny, we really want to go to Unilever retail. I said, yeah, but that is nice. And I've also truly enjoyed it. But this is a very special learning occasion as well. So make sure you use it to the ultimate. See what impact you can score. Take your lessons with you, because the chances that you need to work with more channels once you go back to what we call retail, we used to call in food solutions, is that you need to work with lots of different audiences. Well, look at how we segment now, that you need to work with many channels, that your media is not going to be broadcast and you make one TV film and you put it on air. So overall, no magic recipe. Stay as long as you enjoy it and making an impact and learning, and make sure you never become complacent. I think that's the moment that you really know that you need to move on.
Yeah, we are all a product of our past, and we all have our journey to take. But my experience of B2B, B2C is that they're very similar skills, not least curiosity, drive, creating momentum, all similar things. Now, I wanted to ask you, we got so many questions that we're going to fail to ask all of them, which is a brilliant problem to have. But I'm going to ask you about Dollar Shave Club, and very specifically, what have you learned from that brand and that story, and what's Unilever learned? And have you had to sort of leave it alone, or have you had to get involved? So there's a couple of questions, but maybe the biggest one is, what have you learned from Dollar Shave Club as an absolute phenomenon that Unilever acquired a little while ago?
Well, it is indeed already quite some time ago. I think it probably was 2017, if I remember well. So it is indeed already 4 years. And it's a delicate balance that we always strike, whether it's Dollar Shave Club or any Liquid IV or Ollie or Smarty Pants that we just acquired, because it's a precious jewel that they've built. So the moment that Unilever comes in, you might also have a chance of ruining that. But actually, we bought the Dollar Shave Club for a couple of reasons. First of all, they were digitally first, which was a sort of a business system that we were not so acquainted with. The second one is subscription, which some people say is the future. So how does it really work? The third thing is well, actually, it is in a part of the world, in the US, that is in many ways sort of portraying, not in all ways, I certainly wouldn't say so, but in the digital scape, other than China, is probably an example country to take a look at, how Amazon is really changing everything in the US. So all in all, these were the things that we wanted to learn. Now, there is lots of things that we have learned, but there's also things that why the Dollar Shave Club, for instance, had decided to work with us, because they felt like they needed Unilever to continue to grow. And recently you will have seen that actually we're taking the Dollar Shave Club into retail, so the other way around. So these are things that the Dollar Shave Club is taking advantage of, the fact that we've got a good networked organization and professional relationship with all the big retailers, whilst at the same time we have really heard and learned from them, how do you build subscription models? How do you make sure that there is a continuous purchase? And what is nice is, I think in marketing, we've all been shaped by Byron Sharp saying, well, in the end, in FMCG, you only have light users. So it's all about penetration. Well, actually, the Dollar Shave Club is more about loyalty, obviously. And still, the way to grow for them is to increase penetration. So that's where it resembles the same sort of thing. So I would say not with some acquisitions we do, to take it slightly broader. Some acquisitions we completely integrate. The Vegetarian Butcher, which is the recent one that I was very much involved in the Netherlands, obviously. So with Jaap, the owner of it said, you know what, I want to still be involved, but not operationally run it. And I think it's a lot better off if you integrate. Now, still in the Netherlands, it's in a separate place. It's not in the same building, but it is way more Unilever people flowing in and out. And actually, we are sticking to the belief of the Vegetarian Butcher. The reason why he sold it, he wanted to become the biggest vegetarian butcher in the world, and he knew that he was never going to do it on his own. And he loved Unilever because he felt that his mission and his purpose was going to be taken on and accelerated, basically. Now, what you then need to do is, because this is, Vegetarian Butcher is using the same channels as we use. So it's being sold in the same supermarkets and online, etc. So then you can integrate it already from the start way more. But it's a delicate balance to strike all the time. But I'm really happy with a couple of these acquisitions because it really makes it possible to change Unilever, because it changes your mental models, and that's really needed.
Love it. Conny, that was super answer. And actually, Dollar Shave Club as a brand is one that I've truly admired over the years for many of the reasons as you mentioned there. So lots of key learnings. We're literally clocking out of time, so apologies everyone if we didn't get to ask your question. Just too many have come through this morning. But yeah, so Conny, look, it just, for us, 1 minute to go. Mark, do you wanna go for some of your key messages, and then I'll take over to close?
Yeah, no, you're right, Richie. We've got so many unasked questions. So thank you, everybody, and apologies if we haven't got through everything. But Conny, I've really enjoyed this morning. I mean, we always do. It's a great privilege for Richie and I to have amazing people like yourself on. Really enjoyed it. I mean, you've talked a lot about enjoyment, actually, and being happy in what you do, which it's so easy to forget that. You have to almost remind yourself to enjoy things, otherwise you can miss the moment. You talked about your careers being a collection of experiences, which is a lovely thought that will stay with me. Energized to explore. I mean, your energy comes through in spades. But you also said about, marketing is about influencing the world, doing something worthwhile, which I think is so typical of the Unilever mentality, and all credit for that. But of course, most of all, I'm going to remember that you're still as energized and excited and enthused after 30 years in one company. And it just goes to show that, it's all about what you make of your circumstances and situation, and getting the most out of it and being positive and moving forward. Lots of other cultural insights as well. It's been fantastic having you on, Conny. I'm really grateful for your time, and on behalf of everybody, big thank you from me, and I'll pass to Richie for a close.
Thank you. Conny, thank you again. It's been truly inspiring as a session. I think the one sentence or phrase for me that has epitomized, I think, what you're about is when you said there are 20,000 ways to have a great life. Now, coming from the chief digital and marketing officer at Unilever, front of your mind is for people to actually have a great life. And actually, there's no certain way to get there. You talk about no perfect ingredients, no holy grails around it, and everyone is different. For me, that's just amazing. I mean, the thought that it's not business hat on first, it's actually the person. It's actually the journey. And it's the journey that then delivers to the business. And that's just for me, that's something that's really going to stay with me for a long time, Conny. So thank you for your time this morning. It's been really inspiring.
Thank you. Thanks, Richie, and thanks, Mark, for making my life easy, this 45 minutes, and enjoyable as well. So I've learned a bit as well. So thanks so much. And also for the participants for asking all the interesting questions. So happy that I could contribute.
Brilliant. Well, thank you. And just finally, for everyone on the show, we are here every Friday at 8 a.m. and we are back next week. So next week, we have Charlie Dawson, who's the founder a bit of a mouthful, founder of the foundation. They are an amazing customer success consultancy. They work with some fantastic brands all the way from HSBC to Morrison's and Sky. Charlie is a phenomenal individual, scaled up from scratch, had lots of interesting bumps along the road, which I'm sure he's going to share. He is a genuine, strategic, massive brain. Every time I talk to someone at the foundation, I just learn a huge amount, and I'm sure next week is going to be no different. So do join us next week where we get to speak to Charlie Dawson. All right, over and out.
Good weekend, all. Thank you again, Conny.